So we worked with Enterprise UK and came up with a program called Getting British Business Online, trying to see if we could get people to have their own website with their own domain name, customised with their content, but make it possible to do that free in 20 to 40 minutes. And so far this year, we've got over 90,000 businesses that didn't have a website before, with websites up and running. We're hoping to get to our target by the end of this year. That's a bit of a final push. So I think that's a good example of how you can bring technology to people. It's no longer difficult. And actually starting a business, probably fewer barriers than it's had for many, many years.
Can I ask you both about the role of government? Because we've heard quite a lot from the government minister today, and indeed from the Prime Minister. And this is in many respects, a cross-party initiative. It's not as simple as being party political. And you look at the current government and the measures that they are considering taking that will have impact on business. And you look at the report, the recent report from Philip Green suggesting that perhaps government should take its time paying people, and then you have Lord Young saying almost completely the opposite. Do you sense, I know that you're involved with these people, you know what's going on, do you sense that this coalition government genuinely is sorting out something that is going to be a coherent policy towards small enterprise entrepreneurship?
First of all, I find it terribly ironic. You actually have the temerity in a room composed in tripartite of entrepreneurs, media, and politicians to ask whether entrepreneurs are bitchy or not. What are we being compared to? For goodness sakes. If it were estate agents, we'd still be one out. So now you ask the question, what's the role of government? I think that the question has to be turned on its head. Who are we not talking about who has a role to play? There are limits to government. And government at its best can only have so much impact on this question. One of the things that I find most striking in starting businesses in California compared to here is not that people are waiting for me to fail here as compared to California, but how many other organizations are eager to take advantage of me because I've started something in a good way. I talk about the entrepreneurial corporation, the entrepreneurial purchaser. The fact of the matter is, when I walk into a large corporation in the US and I say, I have an advantage, I'm a small company, I've got an innovation, they are eager to find out what it is so they can have an advantage. Here I walk in and they say, ooh, look at that balance sheet. And I think to myself, that balance sheet is weak because you haven't given me a bloody order. Give me an order and I have a strong balance sheet. It's a self-creating success. I think so, therefore, I think there's a larger question here, and that is about the society at large. Where is business in this question? Quite frankly, we could throw in for good luck, and where are the banks? You put those two questions on the table, and then government is only one question you ask.
Do you think there's a chance that just on the banks that there is going to be a real change soon in the way, in the attitude that they have to this? Because that's sort of holy grail, isn't it? It never quite happens.
Well, as Sarah said, as an entrepreneur, one lives in irrational hope. What do I think? I mean, I think that the banks play a role in a business that is established trying to grow. And they are utterly irrelevant to a business that is about to begin. No sane bank takes money that makes 5 or 10% income on it and invests in a startup. That is the role of equity. That is the role of risk. That's the role of friends, families, and unfortunately the third category, schools, into which Peter and I swear.
Matt, when you address this issue of the culture, because you obviously see it from both sides. I mean, you're here, but you're not here in a sense. You're very much a Californian enterprise. The very fact that you're sitting on this park bench suggests that there's something about you.
Well, I put on the suit today, so I wouldn't look like a drunk if it's sitting on I do notice something on the culture inside our organisation, which is very much the nature that Doug described about getting on with things, trying things, starting things, etc. Now, obviously, that's a large, well-funded corporation now, but don't forget, Google was started as a maths project. I think that's another interesting lesson from our Californian friends. Two people interested in doing very complicated maths and with not great social skills, and I think they would admit that themselves, who were just in an environment where people could spot the opportunity and were crowding in around them to see how they could help, and also obviously to see whether they can make a return themselves. And I think that's something that doesn't exist in a natural way.
Why not?
It's hard to know. I do think there's an issue of actually one point, I think, it's very easy for us to spend ages asking ourselves that question, what's not here, why not? I think the better thing to do is to try to encourage people to get on with it, because I'm not sure that getting to the bottom of why not in yesterday's world is that helpful. The world is so different today. It's globalization, the acceleration of China and India, and the advent of technology that increases the size of our markets. I think those are much more important factors now than the kind of why not of the past. I think that there's an issue of scale in the UK, which has gone away as a result of the communications revolution.
Well, I'm nodding just because recently I participated in the May Festival, and our contributions, what we started the contribution, was to try to take 300 companies that were effectively not using the internet and not leveraging it, and in 48 hours make them so that they utterly leverage the internet from top to the bottom. And in some ways, this is marketing in the age of Google. That is without deference to Google in any way, shape, or form. That's a mixed statement. But that's the fact of the world. And therefore, there's this extraordinary opportunity for a small business to grow large quickly. And the only question is, how do you take small businesses and help them grow large quickly? Or how do they help themselves? We stand on the edge of a very volatile period. And 90 years from now, you can reasonably ask the question, did we take the right steps as a nation? And are we still in the G20 90 years from now, at the end of this century? Or are actually we part of the G whatever?
I just want to take on that and talk about a couple of examples of small businesses that I've met recently who are doing exactly that. So, we see small businesses that exist entirely because of the internet. There's a company called Mind Candy. Has anybody got 6 to 12-year-old children? If you have, they probably know Moshi Monsters. Yes, Moshi Monsters. 1 in 3 UK 6 to 12-year-olds is a player of Moshi Monsters. They're in 150 countries worldwide with something like 30 million players, and it's a small internet-based startup. Couldn't exist without the internet. British, successful. On the other hand, I met the founder of ScotWeb, which sells tartan and tweed around the world, and they are a traditional family business, and yet they have 80% of their sales outside the UK as a result of online marketing. So I think, not to belabor the point, you don't have to be an internet business to be successful as an entrepreneur, but the size of the market and the speed at which you can access that market, and the potential to do things that were never possible at all previously, is a complete change. And it's a change that's only really arrived in the last 3 to 5 years as the internet has become a truly mass market.
The only place I disagree is, Matt said you don't have to be an internet business. There's no such thing as a business that's not a business that is an internet business. Full stop. A local barbershop is now an internet business. Full stop. The fact of the matter is, the internet permeates and has an impact on every business from a sole trader up. And the tricks and it reduces costs dramatically. It drops the effort of doing business. It reduces the barriers to entry. It increases opportunity. It levels playing fields. The fact is, we're talking about gales of creative destruction, right? New businesses destroy old industries. Well, it's that kind of creative destruction that we're talking about that I would love to see. I'm a big fan of that chaos.
You're optimistic.
This is what I'm like when I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I'm really optimistic, and I'm on almost like a personal campaign for business in Britain, because I think, like I said, there are 1.8 billion people on the internet worldwide. In the next 3 years, that's going to go to sort of 5 billion, including people accessing the internet on mobile phones. What's the language of the internet? At the moment, it's English. Okay, what do we do in the UK really well? We're fantastic shopkeepers, a nation of digital shopkeepers. This report showed we are better at doing that than anybody else in the world. We're actually very good at content, whether it be text or audio or video or music, and we've suddenly got a market that's far bigger than anything else before. What's not to like about that? Let's go and have a go.
And can it? I mean, this is the key question in terms of the recession and what's happening at the moment, unemployment rates. To what extent, realistically, politicians have left the room, to what extent, realistically, does the kind of enterprise that everyone's talking about here actually replace the sorts of things that are being done at the moment and where jobs are being lost?
Well, I think that, as usual, the complexity is larger than a simple we're all web or not. The fact of the matter is, there is a widely held myth, for example, that Britain is not a manufacturing nation, when in fact, anybody who has actually bothered to read a report or understand numbers would know that we are a very high-tech, very high-skilled manufacturing nation. And in fact, our type of manufacturing is one that tends to be very high value added and sold globally, much to Matt's point. And that is also an internet-driven and amplified phenomenon. So Do the new businesses replace the old? Yes. Is there going to be huge shattering change for people who don't move? Because it's, the challenge, the new job may be filled by a new person, and the old job that is lost may be lost for someone forever.
Yeah.
And
That
that
was
is
the point.
the shattering social issue that we're about to be confronted. So the real question is, can we make sure that the new jobs are highly paid jobs that are highly educated jobs, so that they're replacing jobs that were highly paid, but, basically underwrote that vast pension that
Yeah,
much of my dream.
now no longer have, actually. I mean, that is the point, isn't it? I mean, we are going to have people who are, we talked a lot about education obviously important, but I'm thinking now about people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and in a sense, what does any of this do for them?
I think, as Doug characterised, we're in the thick of a revolution. It's really hard to understand it when you're going through it. Think about when electricity arrived. You had some organisations which had a head of electricity because it was so important, and some that had no electricity. Now, we don't think about having a head of electricity. It just, it's the way you increase your productivity. And I think the same thing is happening at the moment as you start to see the internet enabling and turbocharging those who are using it. If you're a small business with the internet and you're growing 4 times faster than one without, then that's really an advantage worth happening. And I think that revolution is only in the middle. It's nowhere near reached its end yet. When we tried to get some numbers on this, Boston Consulting Group calculated the internet economy worth £100 billion a year. If it were a sector, and it's not because it's little pieces of lots of different sectors, it would be bigger than transport or utility. So it's big. And you're absolutely right. It means that we all have to work harder, particularly those of us who are older and who didn't grow up with this technology, to try and figure out what it can do for us. The good news is it's getting simpler to understand, actually, because you no longer have to be technically minded. Our getting business online approach was to show people that in 20 to 40 minutes you could have an internet site up and running, and it was not a technical thing to do. And I think we need to see more of that simplification. And also the other thing I'd say is all of us, including those with increasing grey hair, need to leap and learn. We need to have a go. We need to be out there trying this stuff and seeing what it can do, because it's simpler than you think.
Matt, Doug, Richard, thank you both very much.